Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the war room deep inside Luna Command, staring at the large screen that showed Earth floating in the black of space. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, but Jake knew better. Earth had never been a peaceful world. It was a place where everything tried to kill you, from the weather to the animals to the very ground beneath your feet. The message had arrived 3 hours ago through quantum channels that should not have existed. No human had built those communication lines. Someone else had been watching Earth for a long time. "Play it again," Jake said to the technician. The alien voice filled the room once more. It spoke perfect English, which was the first thing that bothered Jake. How did they know English so well? The voice was smooth and musical, like water flowing over stones. "Greetings to the people of Earth. We are the Galactic Peace Coalition. For 300 years we have brought harmony to 12 species across this region of space. We have watched your world with great interest. Your species shows promise, but you also show signs of violence that concern us. We wish to help you find a better path. We invite you to join our coalition of peaceful worlds. Send one diplomatic ship to the world of Kepler 442b. There, we will welcome you into our family of civilized species. We offer you the gift of true peace." Jake had heard the message a dozen times now, and it still made his skin crawl. There was something wrong with it. Something that did not feel right. Dr. Kate Sullivan walked into the room carrying a datapad. She was the best alien expert Earth had, even though she had never seen a real alien before today. She had spent years studying the few signals humanity had caught from space, building theories about what was out there. "What do you think, Kate?" Jake asked. Kate pushed her glasses up her nose and looked at the screen. "The language patterns are too perfect. This is not a first contact message. They have been studying us for years, maybe decades. They know exactly how we talk and what words to use." "That is what I thought too," Jake said. "What else?" "They keep using the word peaceful, but they do not ask us what we want. They tell us what they want to give us. There is a difference." Captain Ryan Burke entered the room. He was younger than Jake, but had fought in the asteroid wars. His ship, the UES Defiant, was one of the best heavy cruisers in the fleet. Ryan looked confused. "Admiral, I got orders to prepare my battle group for immediate deployment. But the message says to send one diplomatic ship. I do not understand." Jake smiled for the first time in hours. "That is because you got the real orders, Ryan. The public message says something different." Kate looked up from her datapad. "I found something else." I ran the transmission through our computers, looking for hidden data streams. There were fragments of other communications mixed in with their message. Pieces of conversations in their own language. "What did they say?" Jake asked. I could only translate parts of it. Words like neutralize and before they become a threat, and standard integration protocol. This does not sound like a peace invitation to me. Jake walked to the big window that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, aliens were planning something for humanity. They thought they knew what humans were like because they had watched from far away. They thought Earth was just another world with another species that would be grateful to join their peaceful coalition. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Kate, I want you to keep working on those alien language fragments. Learn everything you can about these coalition species." "Ryan, how long before your battle group is ready?" 6 hours, sir." "But Admiral, they asked for one diplomatic ship. If we show up with a full battle group, they might think we are starting a war." Jake turned back to face them. "Ryan, I have been fighting wars for 30 years. I know the difference between someone who wants peace and someone who wants surrender. These aliens are not offering us peace. They are offering us chains that look like gold." Kate nodded. "The pattern matches every historical example of a stronger power helping a weaker one. The Romans did it. The British did it, promise peace and civilization, then take control." "But sir," Ryan said, "what if we are wrong? What if they really do want peace?" "Then they will not mind proving it," Jake replied. "A truly peaceful species would not be afraid of our ships. They would understand that trust must be earned, not demanded. Jake walked to his desk and picked up a report marked with the highest security level. 3 months ago, our deep space sensors detected a massive fleet gathering near Kepler 442b, over 200 ships. They called it a welcoming committee in the communications we intercepted. That is a strange way to welcome one diplomatic ship. Ryan's face grew hard. 200 ships to welcome one of ours. The galaxy is about to learn something important about humans, Jake said. We come from a world that has been trying to kill us since we first stood upright. We learn to survive by being suspicious of gifts that come with strings attached. We learn that peace is something you build with strength, not something you beg for on your knees. Kate looked up from her work. I translated more of their language. They keep referring to Earth as a death world and humans as damaged goods that need to be fixed before we can join civilized society. Jake laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Damaged goods? They think our world made us broken. They do not understand that our world made us strong. What are your orders, Admiral? Ryan asked. Jake looked at both of them. Ryan, you will not be taking one ship to their peace ceremony. You will be taking 12 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, 4 carriers, and the dreadnought Retribution. We are going to show them what happens when Deathworld humans are invited to a party. And if they really do want peace? Kate asked. Then they will get it, Jake said. But it will be peace between equals, not peace between master and slave. The galaxy is about to learn that humans do not kneel to anyone, no matter how peaceful they claim to be. The room fell quiet except for the hum of computers. Outside the window, Earth continued its ancient dance around the sun, the same dance it had done for billions of years. It was a harsh world that had forged a harsh species. The aliens thought that was humanity's weakness. They were about to discover it was humanity's greatest strength. The space around Kepler 442b had been quiet for 3 days. The coalition fleet waited in perfect formation, 200 ships arranged in ceremonial patterns that looked beautiful and peaceful. Their hulls gleamed like jewels in the light of the distant star. Then the humans arrived. The first ship to drop out of hyperspace was the UE Shadow, a stealth reconnaissance vessel that most scanners could not detect. Captain Lisa Chun had been watching the system for 2 weeks, hidden in the asteroid belt, counting ships and recording communications. What came next shocked every alien sensor operator in the system. 12 heavy cruisers materialized from hyperspace in perfect attack formation. Their dark gray hulls looked nothing like the elegant coalition ships. They were built like hammers, thick and brutal and ready for war. 8 destroyers followed, moving fast and keeping their weapons powered. Then came 4 massive carriers, each one launching fighter squadrons that spread out like angry wasps. Finally, the dreadnought UES Retribution dropped into normal space. It was twice the size of the largest coalition ship, a mountain of armor and weapons that made the alien vessels look like toys. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display. Red dots showed coalition ships scrambling to respond to the human arrival. Some were moving into defensive positions. Others seemed confused, drifting without clear orders. Coalition fleet is trying to contact us, sir, reported Lieutenant Sam Torres from the communications station. Let them wait, Jake said. Lisa, what is your report? Captain Lisa Chun's voice came through the secure channel from the shadow. Admiral, I have been watching them for 2 weeks. They have been planning this ceremony down to the minute. Every ship has specific coordinates, specific duties. This was not designed for negotiation. This was designed for intimidation. What else did you learn? I intercepted their supply manifests. They brought enough firepower to level a continent. Their ceremonial weapons are fully loaded and ready. Also, sir, I found something interesting in their communication logs. Jake leaned forward. Go ahead. They have done this before. 12 times, in fact. Each time, a new species was invited to join the coalition. Each time, the species accepted the peace offer. And each time, within 10 years, those species had their military completely dismantled and their governments replaced with coalition oversight councils. Commander Ben Parker, the fleet's tactical analyst, looked up from his console. Admiral, the pattern is clear. They invite species too. Join for peace and protection. Then they slowly take control of everything important. Military, government, trade, even education. The species think they are partners, but they are really prisoners. Jake nodded. What about the species that said no? Lisa's voice came through. The speakers again. There were 3 species that refused the invitation. Their homeworlds were blockaded until they agreed to reconsider. One of them fought back. Their planet is now listed as under coalition protection. No one has heard from them in 50 years. The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. Jake nodded to Torres, who opened the channel. The being that appeared was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore robes that seemed to shimmer and flow like water. When it spoke, its voice was the same musical tone they had heard in the original message. I am Hierarch Voska of the Zelani. We greet the humans of Earth. We were expecting a single diplomatic vessel. Why have you brought a war fleet to our ceremony of peace? Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. I am Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. We bring the ships we need to ensure our safety. Your invitation spoke of peace, but your actions suggest something different. The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. We do not understand. We offer you the greatest gift possible: peace, civilization, an end to the violence and chaos that plagues your species. Why do you respond with suspicion and weapons? Because we have studied your history, Jake replied. 12 species have accepted your gifts. All 12 lost their independence within a decade. 3 species refused your gifts. All 3 were conquered or blockaded into submission. That does not sound like peace to us. Another alien appeared on the screen. This one looked like a giant insect with multiple arms and compound eyes that reflected the light. When it spoke, its voice buzzed and clicked. I am Queen Zixara of the Threeks. Human Admiral, you misunderstand our intentions. The species that joined us did so willingly. They saw the benefits of our guidance. Violence is inefficient. War is wasteful. We offer you a better way, by taking away our right to choose. Jake asked. By removing the burden of difficult decisions, the insect replied. Species from Deathworlds like yours are damaged by constant struggle. You fight because it is all you know. We can heal this damage. We can make you whole. Jake felt his anger rising, but he kept his voice calm. You think our world made us broken. We think our world made us strong. You want to fix something that is not broken. Commander Parker spoke up from his station. Admiral, I am reading weapons charging on multiple coalition ships. 12 vessels are moving into attack positions. The Hierarch's musical voice continued, as if nothing had changed. Admiral Morrison, please consider our offer carefully. The ceremony must proceed as planned. Your fleet is impressive, but you are outnumbered 10-1. Surely you can see that resistance is pointless. Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. Hierarch, you have made 2 mistakes. First, you assume that numbers matter more than skill. Second, you assume that we came here to surrender. Then why did you come? Queen Zixara asked. We came to teach you something about Deathworld humans, Jake replied. We do not submit to threats, no matter how politely they are delivered. If you want peace with humanity, it will be peace between equals. If you want to conquer us, you will learn why our world is called a death world. The alien leaders looked at each other. They had clearly not expected this response. In their experience, species either accepted the coalition's offer gratefully or submitted after a show of force. Humans were doing neither. You would risk war over pride? The Hierarch asked. We would risk war for freedom, Jake answered. The question is, would you risk your perfect coalition for the chance to add one more conquered species to your collection? The transmission ended abruptly. On the tactical display, more coalition ships began moving into combat positions. Jake turned to his crew. All ships, defensive positions. Weapons ready, but do not fire unless fired upon. Let us see if they really want the peace they keep talking about. Captain Chun's voice came through the speakers. Admiral, they are sending encrypted messages to their fleet. I cannot break the code, but the signal pattern suggests combat orders. Jake nodded. Then they have made their choice. Signal the fleet. Prepare for battle. It seems our new alien friends prefer the kind of peace that comes from conquest. They are about to learn that Deathworld humans prefer the kind of peace that comes from strength. Despite the tension in space, the Coalition decided to continue with their ceremony. Hierarch Voska sent another message to the human fleet, inviting Admiral Morrison to the surface of Kepler 442b. The invitation was polite but firm. The ceremony would proceed as planned. What the aliens did not expect was that Jake Morrison would not come alone. The human shuttle broke through the atmosphere of Kepler 442b, with Colonel Amy Rodriguez and 50 Terra Marines aboard. Amy had fought in the brutal Martian rebellion, where humans had learned to fight in the harshest conditions imaginable. She looked around the shuttle at her Marines and felt proud. These were soldiers who had trained in places that would kill most aliens just by breathing the air. The planet below was everything the Coalition had promised. Perfect blue skies, gentle rolling hills covered in soft grass, crystal clear rivers that sparkled in the warm sunlight. The temperature was a comfortable 72 degrees with a light breeze that carried the scent of flowers. Amy hated it immediately. This place feels wrong, she said to Sergeant Bill Cooper, who was checking his equipment for the 10th time. Too quiet, Colonel, Bill agreed. No dangerous animals, no storms, no earthquakes, no volcanoes. How does anything learn to survive here? When they landed at the ceremonial site, Amy understood why the Coalition thought they were being generous. The landing pad was made of smooth white stone that felt warm under their boots. Gardens surrounded them with plants that had been carefully arranged to create perfect beauty. In the distance, elegant spires rose into the sky like crystal fingers. Admiral Morrison stepped off the shuttle and looked around. Everything was designed to impress and overwhelm visitors with the Coalition's advanced civilization. The message was clear: join us and enjoy this paradise. But Jake had grown up in the ruins of Detroit, where you learned to fight for everything you needed. Paradise made him nervous. A group of Coalition representatives waited for them. Hierarch Voska stood in the center, surrounded by members of different alien species. They all looked clean and perfect and peaceful. None of them carried weapons or wore armor. None of them looked like they had ever fought for anything in their lives. Welcome to Kepler 442b, Admiral Morrison, the Hierarch said. We are honored by your presence. Please, let us begin the ceremony that will bring your species into our family. Jake noticed that none of the aliens seemed concerned about the 50 armed Marines who had deployed around the landing site. Either they were very confident or very stupid. Before we begin any ceremony, Jake said, I would like to review the terms of this agreement. Dr. Nick Warren stepped forward carrying a data pad. Nick was Earth's best legal expert, a man who had spent years studying every treaty humans had ever signed. He had learned to spot the traps that lawyers like to hide in pretty words. We have prepared the accords for your review, said another alien, this one with gray skin and 4 arms. I am Counselor Vecna. These documents represent 3 centuries of legal tradition. They have brought peace to 12 species. Nick took the documents and began reading. The other aliens watched him with patient smiles, as if they were parents, waiting for a child to finish a simple task. After 10 minutes, Nick looked up with confusion on his face. Admiral, these are not peace agreements. These are surrender documents. The alien smiles did not change. We prefer to call them integration protocols, Vecna said smoothly. According to these terms, Nick continued, humanity would be required to disarm all military forces within 5 years. We would relocate all dangerous industries to Coalition-approved worlds. We would submit to guidance councils that would oversee human colonies and approve all major decisions. Jake felt his jaw tighten. You want us to give up our right to defend ourselves? Violence is unnecessary when you have our protection, Hierarch Voska replied. Dangerous industries pollute paradise worlds. Guidance councils prevent species from making harmful mistakes. These are gifts, not punishments. Colonel Rodriguez spoke into her unit quietly. All units, stay alert. Something is not right here. Lieutenant Mia Foster was monitoring Coalition communications from her position near the shuttle. She was young but smart, and she had learned to listen for the things people did not say out loud. What she heard made her blood run cold. Colonel, she whispered into her radio, I am picking up encrypted transmissions between Coalition ships. I cannot break the code, but the signal traffic has increased dramatically in the last 5 minutes. Amy looked around at the peaceful gardens and the smiling aliens. Everything looked perfect and calm, but Mia was right, something was happening. Admiral, Nick said, still reading the documents, there is more. According to these terms, any human world that refuses to comply with Coalition guidance would be subject to economic sanctions and travel restrictions. In extreme cases, Coalition forces would be authorized to enforce compliance for the safety of all species. Enforce compliance, Jake repeated slowly. That sounds like conquest with extra steps. Hierarch Voska's musical voice remained calm. Admiral, you must understand that species from Deathworlds often resist necessary changes. Violence and aggression are learned behaviors that can be unlearned. Sometimes gentle pressure is required to help species see the benefits of civilization. Gentle pressure, Amy muttered, like the pressure of 200 warships. Captain Alex Turner's voice crackled through Jake's communicator from the UES Valiant in orbit. Admiral, Coalition ships are moving into new positions. They are not in attack formation yet, but they are positioning for one. Jake looked at the aliens around him. They still wore their patient smiles, but their large eyes showed no warmth. They were not offering humanity a choice. They were offering the illusion of a choice while holding a gun to Earth's head. Hierarch, Jake said, let me make sure I understand this correctly. We can join your coalition and give up everything that makes us human, or we can refuse and face the consequences. We would prefer that you choose wisdom, the Hierarch replied. But yes, those are your options. Amy stepped closer to Jake. Sir, Lieutenant Foster is reporting increased military communications between Coalition ships. They are preparing for something. Jake nodded and looked back at the alien representatives. You know what the real problem is here? You looked at Earth from far away and decided we were broken. You decided our world was too harsh and we were too violent. You decided we needed to be fixed. Do you not? Asked Queen Zixara, who had been silent until now. No, Jake said firmly. Our world made us exactly what we needed to be. Hard enough to survive anything. Smart enough to recognize a trap, and stubborn enough to fight for our freedom no matter what the odds. The aliens exchanged glances. This was not going according to their careful plans. Admiral Morrison, Hierarch Voska said, surely you can see that resistance would be futile. Your fleet is impressive, but we have many more ships. Your people are brave, but courage cannot overcome mathematics. Jake smiled, and for the first time since landing, he looked completely relaxed. Hierarch, you are about to learn something important about Deathworld humans. We did not survive on Earth by avoiding fights we could not win. We survived by winning fights we were not supposed to. Above them, Coalition ships began moving into attack positions, just as Jake had expected they would. The first shot came from a Coalition cruiser that thought it was being clever. Captain Luke Stevens of the UES Hammer watched the energy beam streak past his ship and knew the real fight was about to begin. All ships evasive maneuvers, Admiral. Morrison's voice crackled through the communications system from orbit. They made their choice. Show them what Deathworld humans can do. The Coalition had made their biggest mistake. They thought numbers would win the battle. 200 ships against 24 human vessels should have been an easy victory. What they did not understand was that human ships were not built like theirs. Commander Jane Miller stood on the bridge of the carrier UZ Thunderbolt and watched her fighter squadrons launch into space. The small ships moved in patterns that made The Coalition commanders think their sensors were malfunctioning. Fighter squadrons, execute pattern Delta 7. Jane ordered to Coalition observers. It looked like the human fighters were flying directly into asteroid fields and plasma storms that surrounded the system. Any sane pilot would avoid such dangerous areas. But human pilots had trained in the asteroid belt around Sol, where one wrong move meant death. Lieutenant Danny Walsh spun his fighter through a gap between two asteroids that was barely wider than his ship. Behind him, 3 Coalition fighters tried to follow and crashed into the rocks. Danny had grown up flying through the debris fields left over from the asteroid wars. This was just another day at the office. Captain Luke Stevens watched Coalition ships trying to surround his heavy cruiser. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation, elegant and precise. They had clearly practiced these maneuvers for years in the safe space between stable stars. Engineering, give me everything you have, Luke ordered. Sir, if we push the engines that hard in this gravity field, we risk hull damage, his chief engineer warned. Do it anyway, Luke replied. The U's hammer accelerated directly into the gravity well of Kepler 442b, using the planet's pull to increase its speed. Coalition ships tried to follow and found their elegant hulls buckling under the stress. Human ships were built to survive in the chaotic space around Sol, where solar storms and gravity fluctuations were part of daily life. What the Coalition called dangerous, humans called normal. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Retribution. The Coalition commanders were panicking. Their perfect formations were falling apart as human ships used tactics that seemed impossible. Sir, Coalition flagship is requesting communication, reported Lieutenant Torres. Put them through, Jake ordered. Hierarch Voska appeared on the screen, and for the first time, the alien did not look calm and peaceful. Its large eyes were wide with something that might have been fear. Admiral Morrison, your tactics are reckless. You are flying through areas of space that could destroy your ships. This is madness, Jake smiled. Hierarch, you still do not understand. What you call madness, we call Tuesday. Our ships are built to handle conditions that would tear yours apart. The truth was becoming clear to the Coalition forces. Human vessels were not just different in design, they were different in philosophy. Where Coalition ships were built for efficiency and elegance, human ships were built for survival. Captain Alex Turner of the UES Valiant demonstrated this perfectly when 3 Coalition destroyers cornered his ship near a plasma storm. Instead of running away from the dangerous energy field, Alex flew directly into it. Sir, entering the plasma storm will overload our shields, his tactical officer warned. Not if we route power through the secondary generators, Alex replied. We trained for this in the solar storms around Mercury. Execute Emergency Protocol 7. The human ship vanished into the plasma storm while the Coalition destroyers held back, afraid to follow. When the U's Valiant emerged on the other side, it had circled behind the alien ships and opened fire at point-blank range. Coalition commanders could not understand how human crews remained calm in conditions that terrified experienced alien sailors. They did not know that every human officer had trained in simulators that recreated the worst disasters in Earth's history. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, humans learned to think clearly when everything around them was trying to kill them. Commander Ben Parker analyzed the battle data from his station aboard the Retribution. Admiral, Coalition forces are losing cohesion. Their formations work well in safe space, but they fall apart under stress. What about their weapons? Jake asked. Impressive firepower, but they are designed for long-range engagement against stationary targets. They cannot track our ships when we use unconventional maneuvers. Captain Lisa Sheen's voice came through the secure channel from the stealth ship Shadow. Admiral, I am detecting panic in Coalition communications. They are requesting reinforcements from their home systems. How long before those reinforcements arrive? Jake asked. 6 hours minimum, sir. Jake nodded. More than enough time to finish this. The Coalition's numerical advantage was disappearing rapidly. Human fighters led by Lieutenant Walsh had destroyed or disabled 30 alien ships by flying through areas of space the Coalition considered impassable. Captain Stevens had used the Hammer's superior engines to ram through the center of a Coalition formation, scattering ships like bowling pins, but the real shock came when the Coalition tried to retreat. "All ships, pursue and engage," Admiral Morrison ordered. Coalition commanders could not believe what they were seeing. Human ships were chasing them into a debris field created by an ancient supernova. The area was filled with twisted metal and unstable energy fields that made navigation nearly impossible for Coalition pilots who had spent their careers in peaceful space. The debris field was a nightmare maze of death. For human pilots who had learned to fly in the wreckage of the asteroid wars, it was home. Hierarch Vasca appeared on Admiral Morrison's screen one final time. The alien leader looked completely defeated. "Admiral, we surrender. Please call off your ships. We did not know humans were so capable." Jake looked at the tactical display. In less than 2 hours, the Coalition had lost over 90 ships. The human fleet had taken minor damage to 3 vessels and lost no lives. "Hierarch, this is what happens when you threaten a species that learned to survive on a death world. You thought our harsh planet made us weak and violent. You were half right. It did make us violent, but it also made us smart, tough, and very good at winning fights that look impossible." The alien's musical voice was barely a whisper. "What are your terms?" "Simple," Jake replied. "You will withdraw all your ships from this system. You will release every species you have peacefully integrated over the past 3 centuries. And you will never threaten humanity or our allies again. And if we refuse?" Jake gestured at the tactical display showing the wreckage of Coalition ships. "Then we will visit every world in your Coalition and explain to them what real freedom looks like. Something tells me they will be very interested in what we have to say." Queen Zixara's insect voice buzzed through the communication system. "You would destroy everything we have built?" "We would free everyone you have enslaved," Jake corrected. "The Coalition dies today, Hierarch. What rises from its ashes will be something better. Something based on real choice instead of pretty threats." The Coalition fleet began retreating from the system, leaving behind the wreckage of their ships and their 300-year reign of disguised tyranny. Admiral Morrison looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy was about to learn that Deathworld. Humans did not just survive in harsh conditions. They thrived in them. And they had just brought those skills to a galaxy that had forgotten what real strength looked like. 6 months after the battle at Kepler 442b, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in what used to be the Coalition's main council chamber. The elegant spires and crystal walls remained the same, but everything else had changed. The room buzzed with voices, speaking a dozen different languages as representatives from across the galaxy worked to build something new. The Coalition's defeat had sent shockwaves through every corner of their former empire. Species that had been peacefully integrated centuries ago suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Worlds that had submitted to Coalition guidance councils began asking dangerous questions about why they needed guidance at all. Captain Beth Anderson, newly promoted to Admiral after her role in reforming the Coalition military, walked up to Jake with a datapad in her hand. Beth had spent the last 6 months visiting former Coalition worlds, and what she found had surprised everyone. "The reports are all the same," she said. "Every species we liberated is asking for the same thing." "Let me guess," Jake replied. "They want human military advisors, not just military. They want engineers, teachers, negotiators, even farmers. It seems that 3 centuries of Coalition protection left them completely dependent on others for everything." Dr. Tony Walsh entered, the chamber carrying a thick folder of documents. Tony had been working day and night to establish the new Galactic Council, and the stress was showing on his face, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Admiral Morrison, we have a problem," Tony said with a grin that suggested the problem was actually good news. "What kind of problem?" "The good kind. 47 species have formally requested to join the Terran Commonwealth. 16 more are asking for protection treaties. and 12 coalition worlds want to hire human companies to rebuild their defensive capabilities. Jake looked around the busy chamber. Representatives from species he had never heard of were working side by side with humans to write new laws and trade agreements. It was chaos, but it was the good kind of chaos that came from people choosing their own future. How are the former coalition leaders handling all this? Jake asked. Captain Lisa Chun approached them, having just returned from a diplomatic mission to the Zilani homeworld. Hierarch Voska has been surprisingly cooperative. It turns out that many coalition leaders were as trapped by the system as everyone else. They genuinely believed they were helping primitive species find civilization. And now? Now they are learning that civilization is not something you give to others. It is something people build for themselves. Across the chamber, Queen Zixara of the Threeks was deep in conversation with Colonel Amy Rodriguez. The Insect Queen had become one of the strongest supporters of the new system after learning that her people had been lied to for generations about the benefits of coalition membership. Colonel Rodriguez, the Queen buzzed, your training methods are harsh but effective. My soldiers have learned more about real combat in 3 months than they learned in 30 years of coalition service. Amy nodded. Your Majesty, fighting is not about perfect formations and elegant maneuvers. It is about adapting to whatever your enemy throws at you. The coalition trained your people to fight other coalition members. We are training them to fight anyone who threatens their freedom. Dr. Nick Warren stood at a podium addressing a group of former coalition legal experts. The new Galactic Constitution was taking shape, and Nick was making sure it included protections that the old coalition had conveniently forgotten. The right to self-defense is not negotiable, Nick was saying. Every species, every world, every individual has the right to protect themselves and their loved ones. No council, no matter how wise, has the right to take that away. One of the alien lawyers raised a tentacle in question. But what if a species uses that right to become aggressive? What if they threaten others? Then other species have the right to defend themselves, Nick replied. The difference is that defense is reactive. You protect yourself from real threats, not imaginary ones. The coalition called every armed ship a threat. We call them a threat only when they point weapons at innocent people. Lieutenant Mia Foster, now promoted to captain, entered the chamber with urgent news. She had been monitoring communications across the galaxy, tracking the coalition's collapse and the formation of new alliances. Admiral Morrison, we have received formal surrender documents from the last coalition holdout worlds. The Kef Unity has agreed to release their slave populations and join the Commonwealth as equals rather than rulers. Jake smiled. The Kef had been one of the coalition's founding members, a species that had convinced themselves they were helping others by conquering them. It had taken 6 months of negotiations and the threat of human intervention to make them see reason. Any word from the species that were completely conquered? Jake asked. Good news there too, sir. The Yara, who disappeared 50 years ago, have re-established contact. It turns out the coalition did not destroy them. They were hiding in deep space, building ships and waiting for a chance to strike back. They want to meet with you personally to discuss alliance terms. Jake nodded. 50 years of hiding and planning had taught the Yara lessons that the coalition never learned. They understood that freedom was something you had to fight for and keep fighting for, Commander. Ben Parker approached with the final battle reports from the coalition war. Admiral, the numbers are final. We faced 200 coalition ships with 24 human vessels. We destroyed 91 enemy ships and captured 43 more. Total human casualties were 12 wounded and 0 killed. How is that possible? Asked Hierarch Voska, who had been listening quietly. Ben looked at the tall alien leader. Because we trained for war in conditions that would kill your people just by existing in them. When the actual fighting started, it felt easy compared to what we face at home every day. Jake walked to the large window that looked out at the orbital shipyards where new vessels were being built. Human engineers worked alongside alien crews, sharing knowledge and learning from each other. The ships taking shape were different from both human and coalition designs. They were stronger than coalition vessels, but more elegant than human warships. "Admiral," Tony Walsh said, "the new Constitution is ready for final approval. Would you like to review it one more time?" Jake shook his head. "Tony, the whole point of this new system is that no one person gets to make all the decisions." "Put it to a vote? Let every species decide for themselves?" Admiral Beth Anderson stood beside him at the window. "You know, Jake, they are calling this the greatest military victory in galactic history. 24 ships defeating 200. Jake smiled. "They are wrong, Beth. The greatest victory was not the battle. It was what came after. We did not just defeat the coalition, we replaced it with something better." Outside the window, ships from dozens of different species moved through space in loose, chaotic patterns. There were no perfect formations, no ceremonial displays of power, just free people going about their business, protected by their own strength and the knowledge that their neighbors would help them if real trouble came. "The galaxy learned something important that day," Jake said quietly. "Peace is not the absence of weapons. Peace is the presence of justice. The coalition offered peace through submission. We offered peace through strength." A year later, when historians wrote about the fall of the Galactic Peace Coalition, they would call it the day that Deathworld humans taught the galaxy what real peace looked like. It was not the peace of the conquered grateful for small mercies from their betters. It was the peace of free people who chose to work together because it was better than working alone. The galaxy had called for peace, but they had forgotten what peace really meant. It took humans from a death world to remind them that true peace could only exist between equals.